Guys, today we're going to be reading this tweet from Salt. Now, you may be asking yourselves, why? Well, he's got pull, man. Normally what he says, something needs to be nerfed or even buffed, Bungie listens, and they do it. Let's take a look at what he has to say. Hi, haven't done one of these in a bit, but going into the edge of fate, I would like to give some feedback on where the game is at right now, sandbox-wise, both for new and in-game players. This is going to be a long read, tagging Destiny 2 team just in case. The main issue I see with the game right now is how daunting and unfriendly it is for new players to get into it, or even for more casual players or ones that just want to mess around with fun builds, especially when it comes to in-game. It doesn't seem like Bungie is planning to reset us anytime soon or make a sequel, and if the game is going to continue for years, we need to make sure activities don't keep getting harder and harder for the sake of countering specific power creep. To put it in simpler words, the game is currently strongly increasing HP values to counter crazy ability spam, such as Titan having infinite consecrations, and also highly inflating damage enemies inflict to counter overtuned stacking damage resistance. You can see this in many places, but some easy ones are the 2 mini bosses in the new Sunless Cell GM, for example, taking ages to kill if you aren't using top meta options, or on the Dread as a whole, with Strand Subjugators randomly one-tapping you, or Weavers in attendance doing insane DPS if you aren't stacking damage resistance. That to me, but also to many others, and especially less experienced players, is not fun. The game should not try to solve power creep by power creeping the activities. Otherwise, you end up making 95% of the sandbox feel terrible. Let me just stop real quick on this one right here. Do you feel like the game is too difficult right now? Like, are you guys feeling like things one-tap you, things hurt you too much? For the casual player, yeah, okay, all right. You guys want a casual player to just be able to roll up in here and roll GM content? That just wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? I think like when it comes to like grandmasters especially, it's like you do need to have a good build in mind. You probably need to understand the meta, and you shouldn't just be able to roll up in there with the Crimson and shoot your way throughout the entire Nightfall. You know what I mean? 3 builds are good, 997 builds are bad. That's just not true. I mean, we do build battles all the time, and it's not just 3 builds that are good. There are many builds that are very, very good, all with different playstyles. This isn't easy to solve, but I do think certain changes could be made to mitigate the issue. But before getting into this, and to hopefully stop at least some uninformed comments, I want to point out that this is not a convo about the difficulty of the game. I do not think the game should be harder, quite the opposite for the most part. We had some of the hardest content in the past couple years with Salvation's Edge and Vesper's Host Day 1, despite the insane power creep, so that should be clear. What I think we need, when it comes to damage taken, the difference between having damage resist and not having damage resist needs to drastically go down. And with that, so does the damage certain overtuned enemies inflict. It does not feel good to get one shot by some random ads, and it also feels weird to face tank a full room taking 0 damage because you have amplified frost armor and 100 resilience, etc. I would suggest either strongly tuning down most damage resistance sources, or even better, tuning down the way they stack. The second option would be preferred, so that more casual players that don't fully grasp the system could still get strong benefits by running damage resist options, but it wouldn't be able to be abused by those that know how to. Plus, it would not force devs to overtune encounters or design mechanics that bypass damage resistance, like the Lightning and Puppeteer, which by the way is terrible without a visual tell in my opinion. So what he's saying with this is like, you could stack multiple damage resists together to allow you to essentially be a walking tank, and Bungie sees that, and so then they will overtune certain activities to counter the multi-stacking of certain damage resists. Yeah, okay. On top of this, I also think some really overtuned instances of enemy damage could be tuned down across the board. I already mentioned some related to the Dread, but there are definitely more across the game. Most importantly, though, this would assure they aren't forced to add more of those issues going forward. A side note, I agree that melee builds need some damage resistance, and I love the concept of strong active damage resistance. It has a good skill gap to it, and it doesn't make you invincible. By active damage resist, I mean while you're casting the ability or shortly after. Bungie's already added it to plenty of melees, but I would love to see even more of it. The only active damage resist that could use going down a bit is Sword Glade Block. It's not super game breaking usually, since you gotta hold the action, but in my opinion, the concept of an on-demand invincibility is just wrong. Yeah, okay, so Stronghold this season with especially our Strand Sword, right, where you can essentially spawn Unravel and you got flash counter. It's very, very good. And yes, you can essentially block from one end of a GM Nightfall to the other. Granted, guys, this is really the first time we've been able to do that. You know, like flash counter just got, a buff. And so this is not a play style that's been going on for multiple seasons. Glaze, Yes, like we just did a Excalibur build that's really, really good. And here's the thing, you're trading out offense for defense. And yes, you can get through the content. Yes, you're practically invincible, but you're not flying through it by no means. You're not going to get speed runs out of it or anything like that. When it comes to damage, we inflict an enemy HPs instead. I would say the weapon sandbox is not in a bad state. Heavies are mostly fine. Specials are a bit undertuned when it comes to bosses major damage. Specials being strong is fine. Look at Lord of Wolves right now. Of course, that's overtuned, but you get the point. It's fun to have effective weapons without having to worry about ammo 24/7 or to be able to run Eager's Edge. Primaries on the other end, especially legendary ones, are terrible against most things, but they have been needing massive buffs for years. What is bad though, and what makes primaries feel useless, is the fact that certain specific builds provide infinite high damage abilities, and HP values are starting to get really inflated to counter those. High damage abilities are fine, but they should be limited in use. Example, a solo hunter getting a melee back on a kill is fine. A Titan clearing 25 majors with 1 consecration and fully charging super plus transcendence in 15 seconds from 0, basically getting another melee 8+ charges easily, is not. By the way, casting Glacial Quake or Blade Fury refunds all your melee charges. Lamau, why? I will expand on super and transcendence regeneration later on, since I consider it top 3 PvE balancing issues right now. To try and mitigate this, I would suggest to decently buff most primaries, especially against non-red bars. They should still, of course, be worse than a special or a heavy, don't get me wrong, but they could be doing, I don't know, 1/2 or 1/3 of the damage, not like 1/20th. Special needs buffs, but not anything crazy, and please give glaives like double damage on their shots. I don't even really like them, but no one will ever use them seriously if their primary shot is terrible. And yeah, stop making bullet sponge enemies. It usually doesn't even make the game harder. It's just boring depending on the build. No point in making a GM enemy have super high HPS if I can just sit in the back of the map with a scout. Add tanky enemies when and if needed, but within reason. I just don't feel like the enemies are just that tanky. I'm not saying this to just blow smoke up your ass, all right? I think I'm a pretty good player. I don't think I'm a great player. I'm a good player, but by no means am I a fucking great player. The fact that I could solo a GM with a number of different builds is kind of a telltale. I'm not saying that I couldn't have solo these GMs in the past, but I will say now with the arsenal that we have, it's about the easiest it's ever been to solo GMs. And the fact that you can even solo a GM at one point in time was an impossibility outside of a couple crazy people like Esoteric. Yeah, but to be fair, when you start out, you have to get well-stat armor. You have to get exotics that needs to be unlocked, weapons and armor. There's a lot of jumbled storyline for new players. You basically have to heavily research the game to know where and how to get new stuff. If you're not a veteran of the game, on top of this, you have to go through multiple storylines to get many parts of the subclasses while having no materials to upgrade armor, but still needing those annoying ascended shards. Sure, I mean, I'm not saying the onboarding process couldn't be better. That's valid. You know, what I really wish we could do is I wish there was more social elements inside of Destiny. Allowed us to have bigger clans. I'm not going to say everything should be tradable. I understand Destiny is not that kind of game, but it would be really cool if we could have a clan vault for just materials. And like if there was someone that was like, hey, I just started the game and like I'm completely out of stuff, I would love some enhancement cores or some prisms or something like that. I would love to have a clan vault that allowed us to share those items. Now, abilities is a weird one because the sandbox is just so doomed in that regard. They nerfed regular regeneration methods, especially armor-related ones, which ended up only making worse those builds that were already pretty bad, while the top builds that had infinite powerful abilities just due to unrelated effects were mostly untouched. The main thing that needs to happen here is if we want to keep those high damage abilities, specifically tune them to not have infinite uptime. Examples: make speaker sight strongly lower your nade regeneration, make transcendence only give you 1 melee charge on cast, remove the ability to refund all your Titan melees on supercast, etc. The truly broken ones aren't really many, and if those strong abilities won't have permanent uptime, there will be no need to add an ogre in a GM that can withstand 30 Synthos consecrations. On top of that, some of the armor mods could be rebuffed so that less strong builds that don't have a cheesy way to get infinite uptime can shine more. An ogre can tank 30 Synthos consecrations? Who the what ogre is this? Very quick side note, but I really hope they reconsider their announcements for Armor 4.0. Stats being reworked is cool. Stats going up to 200 is cool. Stats giving RNG chance of getting extra grenades or melees is not cool. Imagine you're in a serious PvP fight and you lose because your opponents get lucky and throws 2 grenades at you. Hopefully they end up deciding for a different effect that does not involve RNG. Yeah, I'm assuming what they've shown us for Armor 4.0. I think we just don't know. Like, we just don't know exactly what's the depth here, because the chance of giving you double melees or double grenades. I don't know if that's going to be intriguing enough. I could see the benefits, but I would want something to be more deterministic for us. Now let's talk about damage-based regeneration, such as a super and transcendence regeneration. Damage-based super regeneration was introduced in Season of the Lost, I believe, and to this day, I would consider it a top 5 worst changes that ever happened in Destiny's history. Jesus. Anything that gives you resources without requiring some form of action usually ends up being a balancing issue. Having to kill enemies or take trade-offs to get energy was cool. You do X action, you gain Y benefit. Now you can cast your super at the start of a damage phase, DPS, and by the end of it, you might have gotten your super back with 0 investment on your end. On top of this, due to the way it's coded, which is one of the worst systems I've ever seen, certain damage instances give you insane regeneration, while certain others give you almost 0. Okay, so like in this case, I guess what Salt's trying to say is there should be, for you to get super back, it should be tied to your intellect stat and should be tied to you getting kills rather than instances of damage, which is really, really good for weapons that do damage over time. You want to drop a Wither Horde on a target or an Anarchy or something, multiple shots and instances, rapid fire weapons, things like that. Anything like that can regenerate super fast. You should get no super energy from doing DPS. I'm gonna be honest with you. I know Salt doesn't like it. I actually like it. You know, I look, Salt's, he lives in at multiple different levels of in-game PvE, and I personally love it. So I like getting my super back. I love in like solo content, and the fact that I can get off 2, 8, you know, even like Vespers, the final boss there with Puppeteer, you could get 2, sometimes even 3 Yeet supers off. Made up example because I don't know the actual numbers. If Sniper right now is meant to give 2% on a hit, and a Fusion will give 2% times number of bolts because the regeneration is purely hit based, but they have the same base scalar. Yes, there is some scaling tied to damage buffs and stuff, but I don't want to overcomplicate it. Vegas Relics has a good video on it. If you're curious, what this basically means is that certain weapon types or abilities end up giving you your full super in like 10 seconds just for damaging a boss, which isn't a trade-off. That's your main objective, while others don't, and that is both a balancing issue because players are strongly suggested not to run those weaker regeneration options, and also a power creep issue because players can get basically infinite supers by abusing the system with SMGs, damage over time, etc. I mean, yeah, dude, I guess on the PV side, maybe I'm a bit more, I just like to be strong, guys. I just like to be powerful. I wanna, you know what I mean? Like you know, if it's something that can be abused, I'm right there. I'm ready to abuse the shit out of it. On top of all this, something that many don't consider is how this impacts the hardest in game. With regeneration being hit based and not actually damage based, if enemies have more HPs and you need more or stronger hits to kill them, your regeneration will absolutely skyrocket in those situations. This is why you see players getting their full super transcendence in one consecration when doing a GM, while it doesn't do anything anywhere near as broken in regular play. This should not be the case, and I think we can agree that even if this system is to be kept, killing an Acolyte in a GM or in a patrol should result in the same super being regenerated. You being under level should not mean more super is being regenerated on a similar HP pool. So again, it's instances of damage, not the damage itself. Okay, I'm seeing what he's saying, and I understand the logic. I do. But I like fisting my enemies over and over. You know what I'm saying? I do not think the system needs to be completely scrapped, but it for sure needs to be reworked to actually be damage-based, be somewhat consistent between difficulty options, and most importantly, be consistent between weapon types and abilities, of course, more tuned to the lower end. You should never end a damage phase with more than 50% of your super back if you cast it at the start. This would also be proxy partially fixing Prismatic Titan, because not having infinite transcendence uptime by just doing one melee and throwing a glacial nade would at least make you think about your melees a little bit. Of course, if all this ends up happening, regeneration based on kills, regeneration based on time, we need to go up a bit to compensate. My only issue with this is like, look what happened with Salvation's Edge. As soon as you have a boss that you can't touch with your fists, Titans, we're done. We're out. We're not even part of the equation. It's Hunters and maybe Warlocks. He has some fair points though. Imagine Bungie balancing the baseline for PvE content against 3 Syntheseps, Heart of Inmost Light, Consecration Titans. You could go to each one of our classes and you could find fairly busted loadouts for all of them. And that's for PvE and for PvP. For instance, right now, if you go play comp, especially like high level comp, 90% of the people you match up against and even on your team will be a Spectral Hunter. I don't have the PvE data to reflect like what is the split here in subclasses, but like that to me is like when things become a problem. Nothing comes close to Prismatic Titans right now in PvE. I just disagree with that. I play with Strongholds on Titan. I have such a good time. You have Bolt Charge on Titan as well. I just feel like yes, you got Prismatic Titan, which is very good. But then you can swap over there to Arc, full Arc, and go Monarch and sit behind your barricade and melt everything. Or you could block with a sword from start to finish in a GM Nightfall. But fun doesn't equal strength though, brother. But here's the thing. You're trying to tell me what should be fun and what shouldn't be. I'm telling you what is fun. I fucking have fun with those builds. I have a very good time. Why are you trying to impede on my motherfucking fun? This isn't about fun. It's about how broken it is. Dude, this is whenever I find myself, I'm in the casual crowd. You know where I'm coming from? Sometimes I'm like, I have some elitist takes for sure. All right. But then at the other side, I find myself back in the casual crowd. You know, I don't know, man. All I'm hearing right now, I'm hearing a lot of you guys in the chat right now hating on my Titan, man. Okay, we're at the end. I didn't really discuss anything too specific outside of the completely broken stuff like Lord of Wolves, Speaker Sight, or Prismatic Titan, because I feel this broad discussion covers almost everything without going in depth. Friendly reminder that Bungie does not make changes because I asked so. But I think even if just some of this feedback could be received before the next expansion, that could benefit the game plenty. As always, feel free to discuss down here, and please keep it civil. I'll try to reply to many like I always do. I'm not an enemy. I just want the best for the game, and I would love to see it be both more approachable and varied in strategies while providing content for all types of players. Thanks for reading if you got here. All right, so what I'm really getting from this, though, the main pain point is Prismatic Titan. Let me just ask you guys right here in the chat. I vote with how you truly feel. Do you feel like Prismatic Titan needs to be nerfed? Can we get a poll on this? Can I just say this? The moment Prismatic Titan is nerfed, every time it's literally with one click of a button, it's going to go to Arc, click, and they're about to be bolt charge boys for the rest of their days. That's the problem. To be honest with you, Prismatic on Titan is bringing some level of balance. But Prismatic made Consecration a one-trick pony. I mean, listen, guys. Is Consecration on Titan really, really good? Yes, Bungie's nerfed it once already, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see another nerf. You know, Bungie even notified that they will be looking at it even further. So some of you are going to get your way, and you're going to see it get killed. And, you know, the whole game gets balanced around it. I don't know, man. It's such a weird thing because, like, day one Sunder Doctrine, we weren't using a Prismatic Titan.
You sure about that?
My team was like, hey, where's Bolt Charge? That was what I was told. I was literally pushed to use that the entire day, and for good reason. Bolt Charge is that good. I was running Consecration the whole time. QJ, you were on Prismatic? Oh, well, you know. All I'm seeing in this stream right now is a bunch of Hunter mains that want to nerf Titan. That's all I'm seeing right now. And here's what I will say. I will allow Bungie to come in here and fuck up Prismatic if you give up something for me. Kill Invis. I want the moment you become invisible in PvE and PvP, I want you fuckers to take self-damage. 5 HP per second. You walk around taking fucking damage. Gotta be aggressive, boys. Gotta be aggressive. Oh, PvE too. PvE and PvP. Yeah, you want to go invisible? Make a push. I'm a Warlock main and my second character is a Titan. I can tell you that Prismatic is more enjoyable than any other subclass, not because it's powerful, because it's fun. It is fun, dude. It's fun. It's fun doing Consecration slams, guys. It's fucking fun. Can we just acknowledge it's fun? You know what I'm saying? Look, back in the day, you know what my job was as a Titan? I would rock Ursa Furiosa, I would pop my super, and I would block. The main problem in in-game is that hunters are useless in contest mode right now. The last two contest mode only has 7% hunter population because they offer nothing but golden gun swaps, and they might take that away with a not swap, which would just make the situation worse. I don't think Titan needs nerfs, though just hunter needs a buff. Well, let's be real. That was also in retaliation to hunters being 80% of all subclasses in Salvation's Edge. You know what I'm saying? I do think Bungie may have went maybe a bit too hard on that, right? But you got to understand, they're coming off of Salvation's Edge, where it was just like nothing but hunters. Hunters need a good super that isn't golden gun. I personally would love a day where there is a point where the boss literally just beams down a laser and just like can annihilate your team. Just a single beam just fucking just dicks on your squad. But then you have that one hunter in your squad pull out Blight Ranger, and that's their time to shine, baby. That right there, they fucking reflected. They chunked the boss. I live for this day. Nothing would make me prouder. I hope it fucking happens, dude. I really do. I hope it happens. That would be so amazing to have Blight Ranger hunters kill a raid boss with the raid boss's own damage. Hunters just need something other than random bullshit. I will say this. I think hunters could get some better supers. Personally, I think we should get an exotic for Spectral Blades. And what it does is that Instead of you summoning, you know, your daggers and you run in there and you don't land shit because the hit registration is ass. I think there needs to be an exotic that allows you to essentially summon these 2 big ass fucking blades, and then you air throw that shit. You know where I come from? You know the attack and solo leveling. I don't even know the name of the guy, but it's the end of the most recent season. And I think he's like the greatest. I want to say he's the S tier for China. And he's sitting on the boats. And I'm not trying to hit you with spoilers. Anyways, he does like the slice attack in the air, and it goes and like destroys everything. No, not Goto. The fuck's wrong with y'all? You call yourself anime fans? Goto had 1 fucking sword, and he was a fraud. He was not an international level hunter. Dude, you guys, what the fuck is wrong with y'all? No. Dude, you guys, oh my God, man. You try to come in here and tell me some bullshit. This guy, and he's from China. He's China's #1. Talking about Goto. Goto had 1 sword. He couldn't even hold his own in a 1v1. Look. This guy, I like his attack. All I'm saying is, Bungie, you got to get a little anime. You got to get a little anime with this shit. Give me an exotic on Spectral Hunters. This essentially makes my blade super large like that and allow me to do 1 big range attack. Just, yeah. You know what I'm saying? And let that shit go fuck everything up.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.